Woo! What is up, Devils fans? It's your boy Neil Villapiano. Make sure you check out the Devils State of Mind podcast here on the Hockey Podcast Network. From Taylor Ham or Pork Roll to how much we hate the Rangers, we got you covered. New episodes every Monday wherever you listen to podcasts or on the Hockey Podcast Network website. And always remember to rock on. Woo!
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 73 of Red Wings Rant. That's a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what we're doing. We're still taking shots. Alright, welcome to Red Wings Rant, where we're going to give you all the, what did I write? Tirades and impassioned pleas about your Detroit Red Wings now have a home. Every Monday, Red Wings Rant, we are going to go over all the Red Wings news, which, Mike, today we're going to make a point of how little news there actually is to discuss.
Yeah. We've been scouring the headlines. There's nothing out there.
We're going to promote next week's episode.
Something might happen next week. You never know.
We are found on Twitter at POD Hockey. I am Clink Matt, at Clink Matt. That is at Michael_Clink. We also have a wrestling podcast we hope you guys would check out if you are wrestling fans. It looks like, Mike, we're going to go back-to-back weeks and me going on a wrestling rant. That's what we should do. We should just call ourselves the Rant Brothers. We do wrestling rants, Red Wing rants. We could do rosé rants. We can buy a bunch of bottles of rosés and go against, talk about the ones we don't like.
Candied pecan rants. I found some really good ones, and I want to rant about them.
I'm sorry, what are we ranting about?
Candied pecans.
Right, because that starts with an R, or has an R sound, like wrestling, Red Wings, and rosé.
Sorry, Randy Recons. Here we go. Back in the list are Randy Recons. All right.
Anyways,
delicious.
You can find that show at BOD
tree
Podcast.
nuts.
You can find that show at BOD Podcast on Twitter. We also have a joint Instagram account that I had some fun this week making some hockey memes that exploded a couple times. So check those out at brothers_of_discussion and the website brothersofdiscussion.com and bodpodcast.com. Check everything out there. As you heard at the top of the show, it's the Hockey Podcast Network is where we're running this show through. That is the hockeypodcastnetwork.com and found on Twitter at hockeypodnet. And, let's roll right in. Mike, I spoke with Hayden Carter, who also works with the Hockey Podcast Network, but he is a part of the brand new show that is just absolutely blowing up. I don't understand how our show didn't blow up on YouTube once we started putting it on there, but he's, you know what? I just called him Hayden Carter, didn't I? It's Hayden Carpenter. I did it in our interview. And I thought about just deleting the entire intro. But I want you guys to tune in next week. He does the Brits on Bruins and now the Exploding Show, the Euro Puck podcast, where him and his buddy Chris are actually dissecting all of European hockey. And it's just, it's a really good show for getting to know what's going on in hockey outside of North America. It was a good time, an opportunity to ask about some prospects, and because I'm going on vacation, that was supposed to be our episode this week, I'm going to push it to next week, and we're going to get a regular old Red Wings Rant episode out right now. So I apologize to everybody that would rather listen to Hayden, also known as Odd Man Rush on YouTube, discuss, Philip Zadina kind of things. Playing over in the Czech. We had a pretty deep conversation. They brought some things to my attention that on their first episode that got me kind of excited about some Red Wings prospects. So you guys want to tune in next week for that. This week we're gonna without really any Red Wing news. Last week was pretty heavy with Fabry getting signed and Mike Green retiring. We had some fun. But this week we're just gonna let's just wrap up the conference finals that are going down right now. You've got Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights, Mike. You've got 21-year-old Miro Heiskanen, 21 points in 16 games as a defenseman. If Dallas wins, I guarantee he's winning. He's winning the Conn. I almost said the Vezina. He's winning the Conn Smythe. No doubt in my mind. But you've also got Robin Lehner versus Anton Khudobin, and I think it's funny now that I looked up the stats that it's been such a huge controversy in Vegas of whether or not Marc-Andre Fleury or Robin Lehner should be in. And Lehner, when you look at the entire NHL, there aren't many goalies that have made it through the playoffs that are doing much better. So yeah, should be Robin Lehner all the way. But and then you take a look at the other side of Anton, and he's got a 909 save percentage. So I just to me, it kind of looks like with Vegas being this team that'll just pepper the net, and they run at 100 miles an hour. The only thing I think is
on ice.
Yeah,
that's dangerous. You could break your nose doing that. But yes, you were. Yeah.
The only thing I can really caution the Vegas Knights on is just them hurting themselves, because we've already seen it in the past rounds, and in some past games, and when they go from having a 3-1 lead and going to Game 7. A good portion of that happening was due to some boneheaded plays. So I'll say, I think we were all saying at the beginning of the season, Vegas versus Tampa Bay, and it kind of looks like we're headed that way. So I'm still sticking with Vegas. Going over Dallas. Same thing. Going to New York Islanders versus the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, so, I was looking at some of the weeping hearts, if you will, about, oh no, Tampa Bay's had like a 7-day layoff. Yeah, they're going to be rusty. And I don't think that's going to be the case. Kind of looking at, bubble sports, taking a step back, it kind of feels like the teams that have had some actual time off, to not just be in that day-to-day grind game. They're doing pretty well. I got to think this is actually going to be an advantage for Tampa to have a little bit of a break in these bubble games, because I think it's the physical wear and tear of hockey every day. I think Islanders might come in a little bit pummeled, and then the mental grind I think is a little bit tougher, because all you're doing is staring at that same ice rink. Day after day, it's your hotel and the ice rink, ice rink. I think that Tampa's actually had some time to maybe talk to their families, maybe, have some time to be a human instead of just being a hockey robot. And I guess the two other things I was going to bring up is, one, I hate that they keep bringing up, maybe Stamkos will come back. And I just, at this point, I can't believe Tampa's even trying to count those chickens. He's out. I wouldn't count on it. I think they're doing fine without him.
Yeah.
But what I was going to ask you is just sizing up this series. If you're going to, fantasy draft, maybe top 6 total players from both teams, would the top 3 picks not be from Tampa? If you're going, Point, Kucherov, and maybe Vasilevsky.
That's actually a wonderful question, because you'd have to make rules to make sure that I picked Matt Barzal.
Josh Bailey's having a good playoff run, but
but if you're building a team, I think you're right about that. I think you pretty much take what's going on. You could take Tampa's. They really are rolling through the NHL the last few seasons because they are that damn good. I would take Vasilevsky. I would take Kucherov. Victor Hedman. Is easily, if you're making those lists of best defensemen in the league, which I was going through some of those to get some opinions on this year's redraft that we're going to do for 2013. Victor Hedman's number one. I mean, and that's obvious, but I'm just saying. I think you make a great point. I don't know how. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how you kind of make any other point than just to say, yeah, take the first line for Tampa Bay, take their first defensive pairing, and then take Vasilevsky. I think it's a pretty easy decision. And like you said, Josh Bailey having a good playoffs, but if you're building a team, I'm going to take Braden Point over Josh Bailey. Easy peasy.
Lemon squeezy.
I think it's tougher when you're kind of like saying Matthew Barzal or Braden Point, because I don't know if anybody could point and say at either one of those guys and say they're consistently the top player on their NHL franchise. But I think if you were building out and just taking a look at what's going on recently, I think you could play recent, you could play what happened last season, and the production is still higher for Braden Point. So it's just that Matt Barzal thing still seems kind of juicy. It still seems like there's some more potential to be dug out from what his skill set and his attribute levels are at right now. If we're talking, I'm saying attribute levels as if he's a hockey or a video game, but I think even from that perspective, I'm still pretty confident. Yeah, that. That comment you made is that was a wonderful question. I haven't considered it before, but yeah, I think you would just go top down Tampa Bay Lightning players. But I was actually going to point out that the defensive team is the Islanders, but they had their struggles against Philly. So I just kind of look at Tampa Bay right now, having played, they just won 2 straight series in 5 games. I mean, they also just shut down the Boston Bruins, who have the perfection line is what it's called. So, I think it's pretty safe to say that Tampa will be fine against the Islanders, and good for the Islanders making it this far. But this just kind of feels like the year for Tampa. Like, maybe we're not going to look back at the Stanley Cup playoffs and go, this was how hockey should be played. But I think this is an opportunity for teams like Tampa Bay to just get it out of the way. You've already seen like Pittsburgh Penguins getting mentioned in this idea that they just wanted to get out of there. So could it be said that there's other teams that just want to get out of there and they're not trying as hard? Maybe. But I think when you watch Tampa just destroy Columbus and then Boston, I don't know. It just looks like, all right, they're finally... I say finally as if they haven't been making it to the Eastern Conference Finals over the last, 5 to 10 years. But I think it just makes sense. I think this with what's going on, I think this just is that year where you're going to get the 2 best teams, the 2 teams that everybody was kind of pointing at the beginning of the season are just going to make it. So Golden Knights, Tampa.
This is a special season too, where I know, like, if you watch like baseball, and then there's like an umpire for the regular season, and then there's an umpire for the playoffs, and it definitely kind of feels a little tilted sometimes toward one team or the other.
Yeah.
Or if you watch the NBA and suddenly LeBron James is down 8, and then the referee maybe swallows his whistle or calls a bunch of fouls to get LeBron back in the game. I wouldn't mind the NHL kind of adopting that same thing to give me Vegas versus Tampa. I think that would really be electric for the league. Getting Vegas in there again, and then give me more Nikita Kucherov on TV. That's what I want. So hopefully the refs will abide to some shady back alley refereeing agreements. That's what I want, is those 2 teams. So make it happen, NHL. Let's sell some T-shirts. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, as Red Wings fans, we know that they're not shy about fixing certain things. So why not fix the Stanley Cup playoffs? Now, if you need some fixing down below, head on over to manscaped.com and check out that lawnmower 3.0. It is the 3rd generation trimmer featuring the cutting edge ceramic blade to prevent manscaping accidents. Mike, I go to town. I'm a Willy, my Willy Dilly. This thing
really?
you really can. Oh, that's right. Didn't mean it that way. I meant when you're shaving down there. Not going to town on my Willy Dilly right now. Or in that sense that everybody was probably thinking, Mike, are you down in mimosas during our Manscaped ad?
I am feeling it.
Wow.
That is not a mimosa. That is a tequila sunrise, my friend.
Holy mackerel.
Woo!
Mike,
hang on.
Could. I'm not saying that you should do this, but Mike, that lawnmower 3.0 is so safe. I even buzzed.
Under the influence.
I would feel safe putting my dingus in the hands of the lawnmower 3.0. Like we've been talking about it for weeks and months. This thing really does cut you so nice and close and clean.
It really leaves me feeling more confident, almost overly confident, where I feel like I could put my dingus in a real lawnmower and come out okay.
This did not work. Stick with the Manscaped. Yeah, you don't need to use a real lawnmower, Mike, because this thing has a 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology. So there it is right there. Do you want to use a real lawnmower that's really loud or quietly stroke in that area? I would go with the quietly stroking. It's got that beautiful charging stand, the LED light to light up down there. Your lawnmower's not going to be able to do that, but the Lawnmower 3.0 can. If you want to make sure you're lit up down there so you don't miss a spot for you and yours, you're not just cutting for yourself. Go to manscaped.com. Use promo code THPN. That gets you 20% off and free shipping. Promo code THPN for the Hockey Podcast Network. That's 20% off and free shipping. And if you want to support the show and you want to support your balls, manscaped.com and that promo code. All right, Mike. Hesitating here so that we have the easier transition. It is time to redraft the 2013 NHL Draft. Mike, this is Steve Yzerman's fourth draft. I will say, I think we just talked about it before we started recording.
Yeah.
That some folks might come back and say, no, Yzerman has done no wrong. He drafted people that are playing NHL hockey. But, compared to what we've seen in the past of back-to-back drafts of Vasilevsky and Kucherov, this one, Adam Ernie, and then, of course, Jonathan Drouin, who certainly did not pan out of being a top 10 draft pick. Just crossing your fingers and hoping that, again, you don't look at Jonathan Drouin's production and say, man, what a terrible hockey player. We know he's not terrible, but we're not going to be thrilled if we pick up Marco Rossi and he's running around with Jonathan Drouin numbers and becomes a guy that we trade to the Montreal Canadiens eventually. So I think we can just get on board that this was kind of a couple of misses for Steve. And even though Adam Ernie is following Steve over to Detroit, again, not a difference maker in regards to being like a part of a franchise core. I think ultimately those are the kinds of things we're looking at when we're dissecting Steve Yzerman's drafts. How many core players does he pick up in first rounds and later rounds? This was a couple of misses in regards to picking up core players. That's probably the best way to look at this. Yzerman has done a great job of picking up core players that are about to go win the Stanley Cup. This draft did not do any of that. So, moving on, we got eight players played 400 plus games, which again, as we continue along and get closer and closer to 2020, now that we're in the 2013 draft, we know this number is going to drop just because guys aren't playing as many seasons. Some are still developing, as Mike and I just learned. Some guys are getting their first season this year. Think about that. Drafted in 2013, you don't play till 2019. 6 years of development.
That's nuts.
Man, when we say the Red Wings are 5 years out from being contenders, that's the kind of thing we're talking about. It's guys in our system that were, when we started this podcast, were 6 years away from being fully developed. All right, so Mike, I like what you did here. Do you want to take over on the scouting department winners?
Yeah, looking at this draft, this is the Nathan MacKinnon draft, right? And it feels like a lot of those folks in the top 10, you basically got a player and that was it. And it's fine. I mean, if you're Colorado, you're like, we're good. We don't need a couple guys who played 100 games. How about we take one of the best players in the league? But there's a team, Matt. There's a team that actually found, by God, 3 people and drafted them all in the same year. Incredible. And that team is the Red Wings, Matt.
Woo!
So we weren't even one of those teams blessed with the top 10 pick, and sometimes we're not even blessed with a top 3 pick, as this year can attest to. But Matt, moving on, the Red Wings in this same year, this is the year we got Mantha, all the way at number 20 in the first round. So I think a lot of teams would kind of, be a little jealous of that, right?
Yeah.
Tyler Bertuzzi buried in the 50s there. And then, Matt, he never really panned out for us. And slap me silly, this will be Michael Botch, number 1. Matthias Janmark, who never really played for us, but he's still, pretty good for the Stars. Like 25 to 30 point seasons. It's just that seeing that all those other teams basically had one and done, and the Red Wings to draft, 3 competitive league ready players. That's
2 top 6 forwards.
I'm gonna call that an accomplishment for sure.
Yeah.
I would say also in this group of scouting department winners, Matt, we're gonna put the Capitals in there. They got Andrei Burakovsky, but they also drafted a key cog for your Detroit Red Wings, Matt. Madison Bowie. Don't call me Bowie. Big fan of his. And then I think we had one other note here. You had Colorado, Calgary, Vancouver, and Florida. They all got, one amazing player. But I'm going to give credit to the Red Wings and the Caps for at least getting a couple guys in the Caps for grooming a defenseman that has been very beneficial to the Red Wings. I guess we could kind of dive into the losers. Again, this one was kind of tough because it felt like a lot of teams basically had one and done. So if you got that one player, you were golden. But looks like we just got Minnesota here, Matt. Not a lot of note here for Minnesota. A handful of man games played. That's kind of how we keep track of this stat. So even if the guy doesn't end up panning out for your team, maybe you still, had that fine jeweler's eye, and you were able to kind of, sift through the sand to find that, that little diamond in the rough. But Minnesota did the opposite of that and came home with a bag full of sand. Matt, speaking of sand, speaking of jewels, speaking of, I know we've already done our Manscaped plug, but Matt, every week we like to do the Datsuk diamond in the rough winner. A guy who's a little bit buried in the draft, and then lo and behold, he comes up smelling like Datsuk roses. So Matt, who smelled like Datsuk roses in this draft?
Well, it's tough to say because we picked a guy, but I still don't like our pick because we basically just said, all right, well, let's just sort by points and then keep going down until somebody made it past the second round. And actually, we could have just said Jake Guentzel because that's probably a much better, because it's only 3 picks away. I'm changing it right now. It should be Jake Guentzel. We did
Guentzel, the human pretzel. That's what I'm talking about.
We put Anthony Duclair, who is going to be a big restricted free agent. It's a big decision for the Ottawa Senators. It's a guy who's destroyed.
Tory Krug coattail. Come on down to Detroit. Woo!
Well, I'd be afraid to throw a restricted free agent like Duclair. I don't want to give up too much for Duclair.
That's fine.
So Anthony Duclair is not a terrible player, but now that I'm looking at it and we're talking about the difference of 3 picks and you get the production of, like the point per game production of a Jake Guentzel compared to Duclair, I think it's an easy switcheroo to make here. So yeah, I mean, you guys can, whoever's listening right now, you can kind of roll your eyes or get excited about either side of this. If you thought Anthony Duclair should have been the Datsuk diamond in the rough, or maybe we made the right choice right now as I just quickly pivoted to Jake Guentzel. But either way, it's not necessarily meeting our normal, I don't know, decision tree of, a guy way late in the draft and did pretty well. So I still think this is a pretty tough draft to even find a Datsuk diamond in the rough. It seems like these scouting departments are really locking in. And also there's a lot of guys that are still developing. And I think this is the first draft that we ran into where that has become a problem, and it actually worked its way into like my draft board, where I'm trying to find guys that had actually pretty good this past season and look like they could keep moving forward, but not anything where we're seeing from the get-go. Even with Nathan MacKinnon, and we'll talk about this. Let's talk about this right now, because even from the get-go for Nathan MacKinnon, I think it's easy to say that he's arguably the best player in the NHL right now. But he put himself in kind of a contract. It's a bit of a stranglehold on himself, because he's getting this. So here's what I'm saying. He's winning our Good Boy Award at $6.3 million a year. So nothing could be more Good Boy than being one of the best players in the NHL and getting paid half of what Connor McDavid's getting paid right now. He didn't do it as a favor to the Avalanche. He did it because the Avalanche played the game that the Red Wings are hoping to play, with like getting Zadina's contract rolling, put him in a situation where he isn't fully developed, but you're going to renew his contract in a couple of seasons now, instead of it being further seasons down the line where you wait for his production to go up. So that's what the Avalanche did. They absolutely nailed it. And even though they just got eliminated, you have to believe that they're going to be huge buyers in the free agent market this year to make an absolute monster of a team. I mean, like Miami Heat of the, Chris Bosh, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade era, like a monster of a team is coming for Colorado. But all that wrapped together, Good Boy Award goes to Nathan MacKinnon because the Avalanche paid him before he did turn into the best player in the league, and he's gonna get paid soon. He's just got to wait a few more years. And goddamn, if the Avalanche don't pay him for all of these amazing seasons, pieces of shit. So they've got to win their cup in the next couple of years, because soon they're not going to have enough room to add to this team.
You kind of, I mean, looking at these numbers, it's just eye popping. Like what a bargain the Avalanche are getting financially for this guy. They absolutely need to cash in and just like sign free agents, basically, who have like, just give them like 2 or 3 year deals until MacKinnon's deal is up in 23-24. I mean, they signed him early, but it's stuff like this that kind of, one of the tale as old as time debates that we have on this show is, hockey contracts being way too long. And it's kind of like you want to find that sweet spot between like what the NFL does to their players versus, like maybe the NBA, where the NFL, sometimes you'll see like absurd, some guys given $300 million over 3 years, but only 1 year is actually guaranteed for that crazy high salary. And then they end up just releasing them after, year one.
Right.
So obviously you don't really want that in hockey, because hockey has such a, there's so many crazy things that can go on with, puck luck and weird bounces and weird injuries. And so I don't think you'd want to get into that NFL territory where I would call it abusive, the way those contracts are designed for the, even the top players, and maybe try to lean a little bit more towards the NBA, who they used to allow all their owners to sign, 7, 8, 9, 10-year deals. And then what would happen is these, like average players would have these awful contracts, eat up the salary cap, and make the league less competitive, because there are all these guys eating up all the cap space. So I think you want to kind of find that middle ground. And then especially for your good players, allow them to be able to have that power to, maybe renegotiate if you're basically getting, a 1.5 almost, per game, like Nathan MacKinnon, to let him, make it easier for him to kind of like bet on himself and get a new deal, because this is a borderline criminal what they're spending on him. So maybe at least ownership will kind of double down and try to fill out that roster with other really competitive players while they're on the affordable MacKinnon deal. But this is one of those examples where it's kind of like, whew, when do we negotiate that CBA again? So let's think about that. Matt, kind of moving on here. A silly, dubious award that we like to talk about because when we first started keeping track of these, we had Yuri Depita, who got drafted at 29, a guy who could, upon his drafting, could rent a car, and he had 4 years of car rental experience at 29. This year was just exciting because they came from Tampa Bay, so Steve Yzerman was the culprit of these old timers, but it's not as exciting as Yuri. They're not 29. They were 21. They got a goalie, Kristers, Gudlevsky. Yeah, he played like 3 games, But my favorite, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned him because his name is Joel Vermin, the Rant himself at age 21. Snuck his way in and, followed the cheese to almost 20 games played. So pretty exciting for Mr. Vermin. But Matt, we've tackled, I think, all the categories in this one. And I guess, you're claiming that I took the first pick last time, so I guess I'll let you take it this time. You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 3 drafts in a row Mike has taken the first pick. And that I just like when I went back and listened to it, you're just like, so you had the first pick last week, so I will take, and it's just like there's no discussion. You were just like, all right, so I'm taking. All right, Mike, I have the first pick this week, so I'm taking Nathan Mackinnon, number 1.
A lot of research went into that one.
Yeah, the conversations are out there now of is he actually the best player in the league, better than Connor McDavid? So, and then of course his production in the playoffs we talked about before we started recording is Gretzky-like. So nobody's had that sort of production since Gretzky in the playoffs. So yeah, give me Nathan MacKinnon at number 1. Mike, you got number 2.
We try to do these. I think we objectively, even if we kind of hate the team, I think there's maybe one instance where we screwed over a team. But in this case, Florida, they wanted a center. Most of the best players in this draft were centers. They originally took Alexander Barkov. I don't know if they would look at, the hindsight being 2020, looking at what was available, and undo this Barkov pick. Looking at some of the other top centers available, he had like the apex point wise. He had the 96 bomb last season at just 23. He had 62 and 66 games in the COVID season. He was up there for the Selke. He was up there for the Hart. He was, up there for being an all-star. But, Matt, he actually took home one of our beloved Datsuk trophies, the Lady Bing.
Woo!
Matt, sticking at number 2. I don't know if we've ever done this before, but for the first and second pick, I think we're right on the money. I don't think you really need to be Florida and be like, let's go in another direction. I think the only reason that you would be deterred, not turd like a poop, but like deterred, Deterred, from Barkov is he kind of has kind of a creepy face. But as long as he's wearing his helmet and his face shield, I think you're going to be okay. This is a guy who can, lead Florida out of the doldrums. So, Matt, I couldn't talk myself out of not doing Barkov at number 2. We didn't have to adjust a goddamn thing.
I think the only thing that, and this was my number 2 guy on my draft board that I'm about to pick. So, it's hard to argue. But then who I'm about to pick, which is Seth Jones, is now rated as one of the top defensemen in the league. So his draft day and his existence with the Nashville Predators, I don't know. It's a weird start to a guy's career. But to see what he's turned into with the Columbus Blue Jackets, with all of the drama, I think that started his career, I just, 100% Seth Jones. I'm going with him number 3. I thought he was my number 2. But Barkov's not a terrible number 2. I think if you're getting that two-way forward, like we've talked about before, like how much more valuable that is than just a scoring forward. But you're getting, Barkov who produces and play two ways. But here I'm talking a guy that's going to be a Norris candidate for, the next 5-6 seasons, however
I'm going to say 8
long.
seasons.
8 seasons. So however long he stays at that, that they talk about the maxing out and then the drop off. So he's still within that realm where he could still actually get a little bit better. I think statistically he might actually already be in the drop off point. Anyways, but yeah, I'm taking Seth Jones. This is a guy who's going to be a Norris candidate for years to come. So he's going number 3. Mike, you got number 4?
It's gonna be a tough one, man. Because this is where goodness gracious, this is where Seth Jones originally got taken for Nashville. I don't know. I can't talk myself into. I don't know. I don't know if I want Darnell Nurse, man. I don't know if I want Ristolainen from Buffalo. I gotta. Of the guys we've drafted, we vaguely look at point share sometimes because we sneak a goalie into the top 10. That's not going to be the case this season. But coming in not far behind Nathan Mackinnon and just a chef's kiss above Alexander Barkov is Calgary Flames center Sean Monahan. And Matt, I'm going to sneak him in there. He didn't get to, unseat number 2, Barkov, because he doesn't quite have the apex numbers.
Yeah.
But he's still getting about a point a game. A couple seasons here. He's a dude who's got a couple 82 gamers under his belt. Not a winner, but a guy we're gonna hold in high esteem because he is a contender for those Lady Byng awards. But if you're scoring, you're a gentleman. I'm going to do it. I know that we kind of like to have that positional consistency, but I mean, this is like the second guy for point share. And, like we've been saying, it's kind of hard to even accumulate these stats because this is a pretty recent past that we're looking at. But give me Monahan. He's going number 4.
Okay. Monahan had the drop off, but he's also had the blow up season. So it just kind of turns into what, did he just not play enough games this year to like catch up to what he did the season before? So I think there's enough questions there and enough good hockey to make that that's a very good pick. Okay. So I've got
also,
the Hurricanes.
Real quick, he is leading this draft class in goals, including more than Nathan Mackinnon. So just throwing that out there.
I'm throwing it back at you. All right. Hurricanes take Elias Lindholm. If I head over to my draft board, I'm looking at my number 5 guy on the list, and there's a lot of recency bias here because of how wonderful he's playing with the Vegas Golden Knights right now. And getting the game-winning goal in the Game 7 game. So I think everybody knows where I'm going with this. But yeah, I'm going Shea Theodore, and this is again. I think a lot of recency bias being thrown in here, but I'm just so high on him right now, and I think there were a lot of good defensemen that came out of this draft, so now I'm taking another one after I had the nice and easy Nathan Mackinnon pick. But I could probably get torn to pieces with this, but I think Theodore is proving right now in the playoffs, like it's like he's becoming a man. If that's all it took was leading your team to the Western Conference Finals for me to say that you are a great hockey player, then damn it, that's what I'm gonna say. So give me Shea.
Snag him. That takes me to Calgary, and their boy is off the board. This draft's leader in goals, and Monahan, he gone. But Matt, how many times have we seen Calgary kind of have some pretty straight shooters in the regular season, right? A couple maybe throw a little flurry in there, right? Huh?
I already know where you're going.
No, you don't, you crazy so-and-so. Matt, I want a guy who does a little more, right? Maybe a guy who He's not so focused on the regular season. He's been pretty good. But I want a guy I just outed myself, I think. Matt, I said goal because we had the recency bias. He has been rocking and rolling in this playoffs until the end of their run here. I want to recognize a guy with an excellent first name and a last name that's almost as good. Bo Horvat. I'm taking him. I don't care. Go ahead and laugh at me. But anytime you got 10 goals in one playoff season, I'm taking him. I think Calgary is fed up with these, pretty good regular season stars, and I think they want a guy who's, lacing them up and putting his Manscaped balls on the table in the playoffs. So give me Bo. I know his regular seasons aren't quite there yet, but it kind of feels like he's kind of churning that momentum. He's getting to that point where he's going to be a guy we can count on. And he's one of those guys that we like who actually plays the games. The 82, 81, 82 here in this, past couple seasons, and then, shortened in COVID, but, he's that right at the 69 games. So he probably would have had another 82 under his belt. They want some consistency. They want some playoff scoring. Let's help out Calgary, Matt. I'm giving them the Bo.
I like it. I mean, what's funny is I put Bo actually higher in my draft board, and then I got shy about taking him. So I like him. I think that's a great pick. I just like I said, I got shy taking him because again I was gonna let recency bias get in the way. So the Oilers take Darnell Nurse, and I'm glad you didn't take him earlier, Mike, because I wouldn't have. But we've got I'd say we've got a couple good options here to go instead of Darnell, and I think I'm gonna go a little outside the box because I think there's I don't know. I can't decide which direction I want to go in. If I want to go like, I know more than anybody, so I'm gonna take this guy, or I just take the guy that was a pick later, which would be Rasmus Ristolainen. So I'm also deciding between Rasmus and Brett Pesce, and I kind of want to go. I can make it easy for you and let you have Rasmus. And you know what? Mike? I think I'm going to do it. Yeah, Brett Pesce. Give me Brett Pesce. I'm taking a look at everything that's going down here. I mean, solid on the defensive side of the ice, and when you look at what Carolina is able to do when they shut down one side and pepper the net on the other side, it's the transitional passes, it's the ability to lock down who you're playing from your own end of the ice. So I'm going to give that to the Oilers, who have proved in the past that they can't even in their high draft picks, can't seem to figure out how to find a defenseman. So let's give him a solid defenseman here in Brett Pesce.
Matt, I think this is going to be, for me, I don't get to do this very often, but we get to pat Buffalo on the back. Wow, look at this crazy so-and-so. Matt, I see you taking notes for your next pick. Go ahead and have them. Matt, following suit with the Florida Panthers, you want a defenseman here in Buffalo. I don't think that they're necessarily going to be too upset with Rasmus. Nope. I'm doing it. I don't give a goddamn. Man, give me Rasmus. He's one of those defensemen that I like a lot. He's in the mold of Mo Sider, just a big boy, 6'4", 200 pounds of pure man meat, slapping other man meat. And he's priorities defense. So he's every season you're going to count on about maybe 5 to 10 goals, maybe some maybe like 30 assists. But yeah, he's going to be a big boy, play defense for you. And he's going to be that guy that it's going to be hard to skate around because he's got the long reach. So I think Buffalo's going to cling to him like grim death, and they're going to redraft him. Knowing what other options they had, knowing that there's a special somebody coming at number 9, and an even more special somebody getting picked at number 10 for my last pick.
That's what see, I did that because I thought you'd get what I was doing there for you. Because I think if you honestly took a look at it, and you're comparing the two players that we're about to take at 9 and 10, so I'll just start typing in who Mike's taking.
Yeah, Matt New.
All right. So is it, if you look at the point production, like I think some people would laugh us out of the building and they'd go, "Are you kidding me?" Now compare the two teams that these two players have to play on. And I think we're also talking about the difference of a guy who's playing a little bit more physical than my number 9 pick is playing more physical than the number 10 pick. And there's also been some injury issues with my number 9 pick compared to the number 10 pick. At least, you know what? I'm going to say more injury issues because I know Jake isn't always 1,000% healthy. But I'm taking Anthony Mantha at 9, and I think this is one of those instances where the Red Wings, you're trying to push guys up. Can your second rounders actually look like first rounders, and can your late first rounders get pushed up 10 spaces? And I think this is one of those instances. And if there's a guy that the Red Wings have right now that could be a part of the core, it's Anthony Mantha. Now, we've made the case throughout the season that maybe you trade Anthony Mantha because of the timeline of, do you pay him now and then you're stuck with this contract as he starts to decline, because again, our timetable for consistent competitive Red Wing hockey is 5 years. If you make the argument that we're only 3 years away, then yes, Anthony Mantha makes sense. So if we're wrong about that 5-year plan, then absolutely, Anthony Mantha is your game changer for the Detroit Red Wings. He's a piece of your core, and I guess we'll be winning the cup in 3 years. But that's not to take anything away from Anthony Mantha. Some teams should be paying for Anthony Mantha to be, let's be successful right now. He'll be a top 6 forward. He'll be a part of my power play. I mean, damn, the guy is nothing to sneeze at either on the defensive side. If somebody looked me in the eye right now and said that he's a good two-way forward, I'd be on board with that too. So Anthony Mantha at number 9, 100%. Mike, you're number 10. I'll do it for you. I'm just kidding.
It is Jake Guentzel. It is Jake Guentzel. It is more than him partially carrying fantasy hockey team or two for me. He did get shuttled back and forth a little bit, and it was kind of a sneaky acquisition on my part because when he did get the call up, all he did was put pucks in nets. But yeah, Jake, he's had a couple seasons with boo-boos and kind of getting jettisoned a little bit. But it looks like he's starting to figure it out. The 2 seasons where the injury bug didn't bite, he had the full 82s. He actually already has a 40-goal season under his belt. At 25, that's something I think Mr. Mantha would aspire to do. Yeah, he scores a lot. I don't know what's going on in Pittsburgh. Jake started to get a little bit more face time, as Crosby, gets older, and he kind of seems to be breaking down every season. And they kind of turn to Jake, not necessarily on faceoffs. He does okay on those, but they list him as a center, but I feel like he gets a lot more time as a wing. I think that lets him focus on scoring goals a little bit. He kind of reminds me of a Robbie Fabry on like cocaine and Red Bull, just because the production's a little bit higher. He's slightly better defensively. He's not a minus like our boy Robbie, but I think if Robbie kind of is, looking at his peers, I think this is a guy that, similar age, similar skill type, and, maybe I can start, putting some pucks in that like Jake is. And then it doesn't hurt that, basically his first, like his introduction to the playoffs, he got to go play for a cup. He had the 21 points in 25 games, and that's pretty staggering, impressive numbers for Jake. So, he's got the regular season stuff. He's got the playoff resume. He's just got to, stay on the ice and kind of get out of the way of that shadow of, Crosby and Malkin. But I like Guentzel a lot. And again, I can't think of enough for being that sneaky good acquisition for my fantasy hockey team. So thank you, Jake. You are pick number 10. You are going to help out the Dallas Stars, who originally took. Who cares? Because now they get Guentzel. So, Matt, that's going to wrap it up for us. That was our top 10.
Yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Any UC Saros fans, any Tristan Yari fans, we apologize. We just I didn't think there was enough there to draft a guy in the top 10.
Tyler Hockey Face Bertuzzi fans, we're sorry.
You know what? What's going to be fun, Mike? I was just looking at the 2014 draft, so I know this is stupid and we should just wrap up. But like Thatcher Demko, who just almost single-handedly took out the Vegas Golden Knights. Elvis Merzlikins and Igor Shesterkin are all like the top goalie prospects. Do we take one of them in the top 10? That's something to tune in and look out for. I think that'll be fun because those are three guys that at least with Thatcher Demko we had a pretty good highlight reel to point to. But thanks for tuning in again, everybody, and we will have the interview with Hayden Carpenter. To talk about European hockey and how that's affecting the Detroit Red Wings coming next week. So make sure you tune into that. That'll be available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, and our YouTube channel, which if you wanted to go check that out, we've got some pretty fun graphics and videos going up. Also, our wrestling stuff goes up there as well. So if you are a wrestling fan, go check that out. And that is just the Brothers of Discussion on YouTube. All right. Thanks, everybody, for checking it out. Have a good one.